Something big is brewing in Las Vegas, and it could completely change the Raiders' future. The NFL trade deadline is here, and all eyes are on one question: what exactly are the Raiders going to do before the clock strikes 4 p.m. Eastern? Will they buy? Will they sell? Or will they just sit back and let the chaos unfold? Let's break it all down, because things are about to get interesting. Before we jump into the latest news, make sure you subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and hit the bell icon so you never miss any breaking Raiders updates. Alright, let's move on to the big story. When it comes to predicting what the Raiders front office might do, one thing's certain: it's never simple. So instead of guessing, let's talk about what should happen. If I were calling the shots, here's my perfect trade deadline plan for the silver and black. I believe the Raiders should do both: buy and sell. Yes, it sounds wild, but hear me out. This team still has pieces worth building around, yet there are also players who simply aren't pulling their weight. It's time to trim the roster smartly. First step: trade the fat. That means moving on from players who aren't producing, especially those who won't be part of the Raiders' long-term future. These could be veterans whose best days are behind them or upcoming free agents who just haven't earned another deal. Let's start with Koonce. Trading him for a late-round pick might not sound flashy, but it's realistic. His performance this season has been disappointing, and outside of a few solid games back in 2023, he hasn't shown consistency. It's time to open that roster spot and plan ahead. Next, let's talk about Devin White. I know his name carries weight, but on the field, he just hasn't delivered. His coverage is weak, he overpursues plays, and frankly, he's not a long-term answer. The Raiders need smart, disciplined defenders, not reckless ones. If it were up to me, I'd give more snaps to Jamal Adams and Eichenberg, maybe even look for a new linebacker who can bring energy and intelligence to the defense. The same goes for the defensive tackles. The young guys deserve a real shot to prove themselves. And let's be honest, Zamir White hasn't done enough to secure his future either. It's time to be bold and build a roster that reflects effort, not just names. This trade deadline could mark a turning point for the Raiders, but only if they make the tough decisions now. The clock's ticking, and every move matters. Stay with me, because what comes next could change everything for the silver and black. If the Raiders can get even a 2027 7th-round pick for him, take it and don't look back. It's time to be smart, not sentimental. Right now, Zamir White looks like the more promising running back, and Britton Brown brings better value on special teams. The real question lies at quarterback. Between Kenny Pickett and Aiden O'Connell, both are too talented to be sitting as QB3. That means one of them has to go. Whoever the Raiders see as their long-term backup, keep him. Trade the other and get something in return. Then there's Dylan Parham. He's solid, but not a long-term building block. Since the team drafted Charles Grant and Caleb Rogers, this might be the time to listen to offers for Parham. And if that means considering moves for Alex Kappa, Koonce, or even Tyree Wilson, so be it. Speaking of Tyree Wilson, here's the thing. If the Raiders refuse to use him as a defensive tackle and only keep lining him up at defensive end, then trade him. His potential is wasted if he's not used right. But if the plan is to move him inside and unleash his power, then keep him, because that's where he belongs. Now, let's be real for a moment. Every fan has that one player they'd love to see traded. But think with your head, not just your heart. Don't just name the player that frustrates you, think about who actually has trade value and could bring something back to this team. For me, the answer is still Koonce. Week after week, he's been invisible, a complete non-factor. It's time for the Raiders to move on. Activate Tonka Hemingway and JJ Pegues, give them the chance to prove themselves, and maybe add a fresh defensive lineman who can make a real impact. That's step 2 in my perfect trade deadline plan: trim the dead weight, find hungry players, and protect the core of your roster. Because the next part of this plan? It's all about keeping your key pieces, and that's where things get interesting. Stay with me. When a team's record slips to 2-6, the rest of the league starts circling like sharks. They smell weakness, and they want to take advantage of it. But here's the truth: the Raiders can't afford to panic. They need to protect the few pieces that actually give this franchise hope for the future. Let's make one thing clear, there are some players you simply do not trade. At the top of that list is Maxx Crosby. He's the heart of this team, the one guy who shows up every single Sunday with fire in his eyes. You don't trade leaders like that, you build around them. Then there's Jackson Powers Johnson, a young, powerful cornerstone on the offensive line. You protect him at all costs. Players like him shape your foundation for years to come. Jakobi Meyers is a name that might surprise a few fans. Should he stay or should he go? Here's how I see it, unless someone offers a second or third round pick, you keep him. But if that kind of deal comes across the table, you take it and reload for the future, simple as that. And don't even think about trading Trey Tucker. He's still developing, and while the flashes have been brief, the potential is real. Give him time. The same goes for Damari Richardson, young, athletic, and someone who can grow into a strong special teams and rotational player down the road. Add Michael Mayer and Eric Stokes to the "do not move" list as well. They may not be fully polished yet, but their ceiling is too high to give up on now. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, Tyree Wilson. Here's the deal, if the Raiders are only going to keep using him as a defensive end, then yes, consider trading him. But if they finally let him play inside at defensive tackle, where his strength and explosiveness can actually shine, then you hold on to him tight. That's where he belongs. But whatever happens, the Raiders cannot afford to make dumb deals. When the trade deadline hits, some teams get desperate, and desperation leads to disaster. You've seen it before, teams rushing trades just to say they did something. Don't fall into that trap. Be active, yes. Take calls, make calls, explore your options, but don't make a move just to make headlines. Every trade must serve a purpose. Lately, rumors have been swirling around Jackson Powers Johnson and possible talks with the Giants about Evan Neal. And to be honest, if that's true, it's frustrating. Trading away a talented young lineman for a player who struggled heavily in New York would be another step backward for this franchise. The Raiders don't need another project. They need discipline, vision, and the courage to say no to short-sighted moves. Sometimes, the smartest play at the deadline is the one you don't make. Stay with me, because the next part of this plan shows what the Raiders should be doing instead, moves that actually push this team toward the future. Let's be honest, not every player who enters the NFL is built for it. Some guys have the size, the skill, the college tape, but when it comes to heart, they fall short. That's exactly what we've seen from Evan Neal. He reminds me a lot of Alex Leatherwood, a player with all the tools, but not the drive. Not physical enough, not hungry enough, not committed enough to improving every single day. In college, those flaws were hidden behind strong teammates and great coaching. But in the NFL, you can't hide. The league exposes everyone who doesn't put in the work. And that's why trading for a player like Evan Neal would make no sense for the Raiders. Why bring in another offensive lineman who hasn't proven anything when you already have young players waiting for their shot? If you really want to shake things up, move Jackson Powers Johnson to center, give Jordan Meredith a chance at guard, or let the rookies Charles Grant and Caleb Rogers take their lumps. Yes, they'll make mistakes, but at least they'll grow. That's how you build a future, by letting your own players learn through fire instead of bringing in someone else's problem. Now, if I were sitting in a room with the Raiders front office, I'd say this: stop chasing short-term fixes. Build something real. Because the truth is, this team doesn't just need a spark, it needs a defensive revival. The offense has its issues, sure. But the real hole? It's on the defensive side of the ball. Maxx Crosby can't do everything alone. He's out there giving 110% every single game, and it's painful to watch him fight without real support. If the Raiders want to turn things around, that's where the focus must be. Find someone who can take pressure off Crosby, collapse the pocket, stop the run, and bring energy to that defense. Because when Maxx has help, the entire Raiders team looks different. So as we move forward in this trade deadline plan, remember this: don't waste picks on mediocrity. Build where it matters most, the defense. Stay with me, because what comes next could define the Raiders' identity for years to come. Let's be real for a second, this Raiders' defensive line needs help. A lot of it. When you look across that interior, there just isn't enough talent or depth to compete at the level this team needs. Every week, the same thing happens. Maxx Crosby gets double-teamed, sometimes even triple-teamed, while everyone else just disappears. That's the problem. When one man is fighting alone, your defense collapses fast. If I'm running things, the first order of business is adding firepower to that defensive front, and not just anywhere, but off the edge. That's where the real difference can be made. Here's how I'd do it: move Tyree Wilson inside to defensive tackle, where his power can actually shine. Then start rotating those young guys, Tonka Hemingway and JJ Piguet, far more often. They've been sitting on the sideline when they could be out there gaining experience and giving Maxx the support he deserves. The biggest issue right now is fatigue. When you have no depth, your starters get worn down fast, and by the second half, they're out of gas. Bringing in a talented edge rusher changes everything. It not only takes pressure off Crosby, but it also helps your defensive tackles collapse the pocket, gives your linebackers breathing room, and even makes your secondary look sharper. When quarterbacks are forced to throw under pressure, everyone on defense benefits. Think about it, this unit has shown flashes. We saw improvement in the first half of last week's game before they ran out of steam. Add one more difference maker, and that momentum could actually last. There are several names worth watching, players like Bradley Chubb, Carl Granderson, Arden Key, Kayvon Thibodeau, Jermaine Johnson, Draymond Jones, and Matthew Judon. These are guys who bring intensity, edge speed, and consistency. They could completely transform the Raiders' pass rush. And if there's a chance to land someone like Mozzie Smith from Dallas at a low price, take it.